like money, motherfucker? Money be green. Money feel like money. That shit look green to you?
All right, so let's get to the main event now. Jake Paul is a minus 430 straight up on the money line, and Nate Diaz a plus 290. Of course, Jake Paul coming into this one, he's 6-1, coming off that one loss against Tommy Fury, and he has knocked out 4 of his opponents. As for Nate Diaz, we know what he's done in the UFC in his MMA career. I think he's 22-13, if I'm not mistaken. But this is his pro boxing debut, and it's against Jake Paul. So, Brian, how are you betting this fight, and how do you see it going?
He is 22-13. Most of those wins by submission, 13 of them. That won't help him in this fight. So,
Yeah.
I think the money line is justifiable. I'm not looking there. I think that Jake Paul is too big for Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz fought at 170 pounds at welterweight most recently in the UFC and MMA. And he is tough. He's so durable, has an exceptional chin, has some MMA boxing ability, but different from boxing ability, which is ironic because we're talking about him fighting Jake Paul, not necessarily like, a pro boxer of note, I guess, to some extent. But Jake Paul is technically a pro boxer now, and we have to treat him as such at least to some degree. And in response to Tommy Fury, this just makes a lot of sense for him, right? I think he's going to win this fight. Now, he's minus 120, almost even odds to win by knockout, which I find very interesting. And I think the size difference is, has a lot to do with that. But I think with Nate Diaz, he is tough. I could see him lasting, but it's a 10-round fight. Yeah. And that's where I'm kind of like, I think Jake Paul is going to stop him minus 120. I do think it's going to be late, though. So I'll look at some alternative group round betting. If they have between rounds 6 and 10, that's where I'm going to look for Jake Paul, because I guarantee that's going to be plus odds. I think it'll be a late stoppage. I thought about the decision plus 290, but 10 rounds, I just think that Jake Paul could find him or whatever. And I don't give Nate Diaz like too much of a chance to secure the upset, but it wouldn't totally surprise me because Nate Diaz has just done that before. It'll just surprise me mildly because it's boxing and not an MMA.
Yeah, I mean, when I take a look at this fight, I think it's a great match for Jake Paul after coming off that loss against Tommy Fury when he fought at Real Boxer. But he does really well against former UFC fighters, right? I mean, think about it. Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren. Like, this is just another former MMA fighter that he's adding on to his list. And we know that Jake Paul can box. Like, he does have a good right hand. I think he struggles at times when you try to bang with him on the inside. If I'm Nate Diaz, and we all know Nate Diaz is tough, he's not going to be able to throw that Stockton slap in this one. You know what I'm saying? He's going to have gloves on. So it's going to be a different fight for him. He can't submit anyone. In his last fight, he submitted Tony Ferguson. I think that was almost a year ago. September 2022 or something like that. And he hasn't knocked out anyone since Gray Maynard. And I think that was like in 2013 or something like that. So it's been a minute for Nate Diaz. And he's not a guy that you're like, whoa, he's got power, but he's tough as nails, right? He's going to be bloody. I don't know when he's going to get cut open. I think his skin is really thin on his forehead. So Nate Diaz is going to be bloody in this fight, I think. So there will be blood. But I think Jake Paul is just going to get it done. I think he's going to outbox him. I just think, okay, so I think there's the possibility for Jake Paul to obviously get the knockout, but I just think Nate Diaz is way too tough, man. And his confidence level, like, even when he loses, he's still got his confidence. You know what I mean? That's Nate Diaz. He can be a little bit delusional at times, but he's got the heart of a lion, man. So I'm going to take Jake by decision at plus 290. The big possibility that Jake gets the knockout, I think Nate Diaz is too tough, man. I know he's 38 years old and he's got a lot of those, MMA years on him, but I think that might come into handy in this fight. These two have been going at it on social media for a minute anyways. So I'm glad this fight is kind of happening, but Jake Paul is going to get the win, knockout or decision, but I'm going to roll with decision, plus 290. And there is some value there. Brian, are you excited for this card?
More so for Amanda Serrano, Heather Hardy. Anytime I get to watch Amanda Serrano again, I'm excited. And to see her fight Heather Hardy again, I'm very excited because I know they're going to bring it. Both warriors. Jake Paul, Nate Diaz, less so, just because it's a spectacle and I kind of know what it is. But it'll be fun to watch. And, we'll talk about it after the fact on this channel. And I think that Jake Paul probably is going to stop Nate Diaz. Not because like he's not tough or anything. I just think
Yeah.
it's going to be like a doctor stoppage. Like, you know,
Mm.
that's one thing you got to factor in as well. Like I factor it in with betting is like, when will the doctor just say enough is enough? And he's not somebody who's going to be defensively amazing. Like he's going to take the hits, and it's a different style. And that's more so what I'm looking at. It's just a late stoppage. Doctor comes in, you know, stops the fight. Nate Diaz doesn't want the fight to stop because he'd die in the ring if he has to. And I think
He
it's
would.
yeah, I think it's going to be like an against his will type of thing. I don't think it's going to be an egregious sort of like, oh, he just knocks out Nate Diaz with one punch, which that could happen too, I suppose. But I think it's going to be more of an accumulation of punishment, and then doctor says enough is enough.
I think he does drop Nate Diaz in the fight. I think he drops him in the fight. I want to take a look at more odds for that. Like if you know, he drops Nate Diaz and Jake Paul gets a victory. Like I don't know if those odds have come out just yet.
They have some. They have
Yeah.
some. They don't have everything yet, but they have some. To be knocked down, Nate Diaz is minus 134. Good number on that, actually.
Yeah, I like that number.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where you can take a look at some of those bets as well. But nonetheless, Nate Diaz, Jake Paul gonna get it on in the ring, taking Jake by decision. You got Jake by knockout. And just to sum up, we both have Amanda Serrano winning by decision as well. But we do think Heather Hardy is going to have some moments. By the way, as we mentioned, if you like the content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, if you're listening to this on the audio side, please leave a rate and review. Give us a 5-star. Thank you so much for rocking with us. And we are also going to have a live for this on Saturday, Bryan.
Mm-hmm. It'll be our another live for us. So we've been live a lot lately. Because I said we'd be doing more of these, and we are. And this is probably the last in terms of big like crossover potential. This is probably the last big fight of that ilk up until maybe Canelo Alvarez and
Jermell.
Jermell Charlo. There are some good nerd fights next week, and you also have Anthony Joshua, Dillian White. Some would say that's crossover appeal worthy. I think more so in the UK. Shout out to our
I
UK
hate that
followers.
fight, but yes.
And I think that is a big fight, but it's also one that we've seen already, and one that I don't know if it goes any different than it did the first time.
Yeah, so make sure to tune in on that live. If you got a chance, hop in with us, drop some comments, and we'll be back with some more content soon. And make sure to check out that Pound for Pound list.